Greetings and peace. I hope you and yours are having a wonderful month of April 2024. Now, the title of today's presentation will be Henry Corbin's The Man of Light in Iranian Sufism. So, before getting into the teachings of the book, we'll get to know Henry Corbin a little bit. So, for those that are watching this for the first time, they can benefit from it. Henry Corbin was born in 1903 and passed away in 1978 Common Era. He was a prominent French philosopher, theologian, and scholar of Islamic mysticism. He's best known for his work on the Iranian philosopher Avicenna and for introducing the concept of the imaginal realm in Western philosophy. Corbin's life was dedicated to bridging the gap between Western and Islamic thought, exploring the mystical dimensions of both traditions. He studied at the Sorbonne and later became a professor at the École pratique des hautes études in Paris. His extensive writings have had a significant influence on the study of Islamic philosophy and mysticism in the West. Corbin's teachings centered on the exploration of mystical and spiritual dimensions within Islamic thought, particularly focusing on Shia Islam and the works of Persian philosophers like Avicenna, Ibn Sina, and Suhrawardi. The key aspects of his teachings are as follows. 1. The mundus imaginalis. Corbin introduced the concept of the imaginal realm, or the mundus imaginalis, which he believed to be a realm of spiritual realities intermediate between the physical world and the world of pure intellect. This concept has had a profound impact on the understanding of symbolism, imagination, and spiritual experience in Western philosophy and psychology. 2. Theophany and divine imagination. Corbin explored the idea of theophany, or the manifestation of the divine, through the lens of the imagination. He argues that the divine presence can be experienced through visionary encounters and spiritual imagination, emphasizing the importance of inner spiritual experience in understanding the nature of reality. 3. The spiritual journey. Corbin's works often discuss the spiritual journey of the soul, drawing from the Islamic mystical traditions, such as Sufism. He believed in the transformative power of spiritual practices and inner contemplation in guiding individuals towards spiritual enlightenment and union with the divine. 4. Islamic philosophy and mysticism. Corbin's scholarship shed light on the rich philosophical and mystical heritage of Islam, particularly within the Shia tradition. He emphasized the importance of understanding Islamic thought in its own terms and advocated for a dialogue between Western and Islamic philosophy. And Corbin's teachings emphasized the importance of spiritual experiences, imagination, and inner transformation in the quest for divine knowledge and understanding. His works continue to inspire scholars and spiritual seekers interested in exploring the mystical dimensions of Islamic philosophy and spirituality. So now that you know a little bit about Henry Corbin, now we can get into his book, The Man of Light in Iranian Sufism. This book explores the symbolism of light and the figure of the man of light within the context of Iranian Sufism, particularly focusing on the work of the Persian mystic Suhrawardi. Corbin dwells into Suhrawardi's teachings on the inner journey of the soul and the quest for spiritual illumination. He examines the symbolism of light as a metaphor for divine knowledge and enlightenment, and how Sufi mystics strive to awaken the inner light within themselves through spiritual practices and contemplation. Corbin also discusses the concept of the perfect man or universal man as the embodiment of divine light and wisdom, serving as a guide for spiritual seekers on their journey towards union with the divine. Through his analysis, Corbin sheds light on the rich symbolism and mystical teachings of Iranian Sufism, offering insights into the transformative power of spiritual illumination in the quest for divine truth. This book discusses the concept of orientation and the importance of the north and the heavenly pole in the Iranian Sufi literature. It explores the vertical dimension of human presence and the quest for the mystical orient. This orient, located at the heavenly pole, is the eighth climb and can only be revealed through a specific mode of presence. Corbin discusses the mode of being of the Sufi and the spiritual family to which Sufism belongs. Corbin mentions a dislocation of contrast in geographical and anthropological classifications and the loss of the individual dimension in Western man. The book explores the symbolism of the Northern Light and the need for a new interpretation of the opposition between East and West. The archetypal images preceding sensory perception and their role in meditation and transmutation are also discussed. The book emphasizes the concrete spiritual universe and the ability to see beings and things in the Northern Light. Further, Corbin discusses the concept of the Harionosis and the idea of a psycho-spiritual realm that goes beyond the ordinary two-dimensional view of consciousness and unconsciousness. The book explores the distinction between two forms of darkness and emphasizes the importance of orientation towards the cosmic north or polar dimension. The book also mentions the reoccurrence of a figure in various mystical traditions and emphasizes the dialogal unity and biunity of the polar dimension. The understanding of this relationship is likened to the Sufi saying, "He who knows himself knows his Lord." The book highlights the importance of recognizing the difference between the darkness that holds captive the light and the divine cloud of the unknowing that gives birth to the light. Further, Corbin discusses the idea of the perfect nature as a guide for the man of light in Hermeticism and Sufism. This book emphasizes the importance of the individual in his individuality and individuation of the self and the transcendence of collective influences. Corbin suggests that this figure of perfect nature is central to understanding the spiritual journey and the overcoming of darkness. Corbin also mentions the connection between the man of light and his guide in various religious traditions, including Zoroastrianism, Manichaeism, and Sufism. The book introduces the concept of colored photoisms and their significance of the growth of the man of light. It concludes by acknowledging the centric nature of these ideas and the need for a deeper understanding of their context. The book discusses the alchemist Zosimos of Panopolis and his teachings on spiritual transmutations. It explores the idea of the man of light and his counterpart, the earthly Adam. It also mentions the guide of light, who is the man of light's spiritual guide, and the relationship between perfect nature and the man of light. The book emphasizes the importance of individuality and the relationship between the microcosm and the macrocosm. Perfect nature is a central concept in mystical theosophy that is revealed exclusively to disciples by the sages. It represents the attainment of inner enlightenment and is achieved through initiation. In the account of Hermes, he's instructed to bring forth an image from a subterranean vault, which leads to the revelation of the mysteries of creation. Perfect nature is described as a guide and a companion, intimately connected to the man of light, and their roles become interchangeable. Abu al-Barakat Baghdadi also explores the theme of perfect nature in relation to the active intelligence and the angel Gabriel. Sohrawardi's writings further emphasize the role of perfect nature as a visionary figure and answerer of prayers. Nature is seen as the guide of spiritual individuals, allowing them to cross thresholds and experience transcendent dimensions. The perfect nature is addressed in psalms and prayers, and the relationship between the spiritual seeker and their guide is found in various spiritual traditions. Sohrawardi's recital of the Occidental exile parallels the themes found in the Acts of Thomas, emphasizing the biunity of perfect nature and the man of light. Iranian spirituality focuses on the journey of the exile, recognizing the powers of oppression and ultimately seeking the mystical earth of Hurkalia. The exile faces challenges and attempts at assimilation, but maintains their mystical consciousness and recognizes the guiding light that is not of the external world. The leitmotif of Iranian spirituality can also be in other works, such as Najm Kobra and the compilation of the Amartakunda. From a Gnostic perspective, the book discusses the concepts of perfect nature and the man of light in relation to the descent to earth and the return home. It mentions the role of the shepherd or guide in guiding the man of light through his journey. And the book also references the Hermetic text of Poemander and the Christian text of the Shepherd of Hermas, highlighting the similarities between the two. The book suggests that the Zoroastrian religion provides a classical example of perfect nature and the man of light, but also raises questions about what happens if the man of light succumbs to darkness. The interpretation of color photoisms is mentioned as a means of understanding the role of the supersensory guide. Corbin discusses the concepts of light, shadow, and archetypes in Mazdian cosmogony, and this book explores the relationship between the Fravarti and the Deena, the two archetypal figures, and their role in guiding human beings. The book also touches on the idea of betrayal and the consequences of disconnecting from one's Fravarti. It suggests that the Fravarti, when identified with the earthly dimension, may need a celestial guardian angel. And this specific chapter of the book concludes by comparing the Iranian and Nordic theogony, highlighting the similarities between the Fravartis and Valkyries. Further, Corbin discusses the concept of heavenly twins in various religions and philosophical traditions, such as Fravartis and the Valkyries. These twins are seen as guiding figures that lead individuals through life and after death. The book also mentions the belief in a primordial image that allows seekers to perceive it or perceive a world of realities beyond the senses and concepts. The heavenly twin is often associated with angels and figures like Brynhild. The concept of heavenly twins is presented in Mandean Gnosis and Manichaeism, as well as in the other traditions such as Catharism and Islam. The heavenly twin is seen as a guide and companion for the soul, leading it toward the world of light and its true form. Corbin discusses the notion of Sukshin in two Upanishads, which refers to the idea of the man in man, being an eyewitness to but not involved in the actions and inner states of the individual. The book also explores the concept of the witness in various religious traditions, such as Zoroastrianism and Sufism. The book then focuses on the imagery of the cosmic north and the heavenly earth in Iranian philosophy and mythology, specifically in relation to the primordial image that guides perception and orientation. The events in Iran Vej, a mythical place associated with liturgies and paradise, are described as symbolic representations of the supernatural beyond. This includes the idea of a shadowless country populated by beings of light, and the concept of the northern sun, symbolizing completeness and harmony. The book concludes this specific chapter by emphasizing the significance of longing for Iran Vej as a desire for the earth of visions and a meeting with the divine. Further, the passage of this book discusses the concept of the heavenly pole, the seat of the Zarathustrian seat of light, and the use of imagination to create symbolic constructions that support mental realizations. It also discusses the paradise of Yima and the mountains of Kaf as the cosmic north. The Orient is oriented towards the center, which is the topmost point of the cosmic dome, and accessing it leads to the beyond, where vision becomes real history. The book and this passage specifically also mentions the supersensory Orient that governs the Gnostics' orientation towards their country of origin. Further, the book discusses the symbolism of the North and the journey towards enlightenment. It mentions the vision of Hermes and his recognition of perfect nature. Corbin also explores the distinction between exoteric consciousness and esoteric consciousness, as well as the importance of symbols in expressing the reintegration of the human being. Corbin discusses the significance of the cosmic north and the symbolism of the pole, particularly in relation to the search for spiritual enlightenment. The book emphasizes the importance of individuality and the potential for transcendence, while cautioning against the dangers of disorientation and confusion. The visions of Ruzbehan of Shiraz are cited as examples of the symbolism in this book. Ruzbehan has a dream where he encounters two Sufi sheikhs who resemble himself. They share a mystical meal and reveal that the substance they consumed was oil from the constellation of the Bear, symbolizing Rusbihan's admission to the rank of the seven masters of initiation and intercessors. Rusbihan then focuses his attention on the constellation of the Bear and sees it as the threshold of the beyond and the place of theophanies. The visions of Rusbihan demonstrate the importance of the pole and vilayat, or initiation, in Sufi theosophy. These themes align with the spiritual doctrine of Rusbihan, which emphasizes the idea of God revealing himself through the awliya, or initiates who remain unknown to ordinary men. Or the awliya are sometimes known as the saints or the friends of God or friends of Allah. Rusbihan also explores the symbolism of the pole in Zoroastrianism, specifically the angel Sraosha's connections to initiation. And the beautiful thing about the awliya or the saints of Allah is sometimes they themselves don't know that they are of that spiritual rank. The book discusses the concept of the cosmic mountain and its connection to the pole, specifically the abode of the angel Sraosha. It also explores the parallels between Sufism, Zoroastrianism, and Taoism in their hierocosmology and the symbolism of the pole. The book further mentions the belief in heavenly earths and their connection to the north, and this specific part of the book concludes by highlighting the significance of the Orient as a supersensory realm that is associated with the pole and the spiritual world. Corbin discusses the concept of the Orient in Avicennan recitals and Sohrawardi's Oriental theosophy. Corbin states that the Orientals are those who return to the celestial world after going through inner initiation. The book mentions the concept of Oriental knowledge, which is immediate presence and self-consciousness. Corbin explores the correlation between the discovery of the alter ego and the orientation towards the heavenly pole. The book discusses the visionary experiences of color and their symbolism in Sufism. Additionally, it explains the perception of light and darkness by mystics and their aspiration for liberation. Cobra's text discusses the concept of visionary a perception and the process of spiritual warfare to separate oneself from the darkness of their nature. It emphasizes the need to recognize and overcome the three adversaries of nature, the lower soul, and the devil, what we know in Sufism as the four enemies. Metamorphosis and the conjunction of light and the heavenly guide are the ultimate goals. The book also mentions the importance of discerning the shadow and the three characteristics that constitute the drama of the soul. Corbin discusses the different aspects of the soul and its journey toward spiritual enlightenment. The book mentions the lower soul, which can be purified through prayer, and the pacified soul, which is in harmony with the divine. The book also discusses the connection between like and how the human being is a reflection of the cosmos. The ultimate goal is the return of light to light, and how the Sufi always wants to be united with his beloved, Allah, the light of the heavens and the earth. Anthropology is the science that studies the origin of man and is oriented towards the pole. Mystical experiences play a role in cosmic salvation. The heart participates in divine attributes, and the mystic's relationship with their heavenly witness is essential. The seeker is a particle of the divine light being sought. The practice of continuous prayer, known as dhikrullah, is the most effective means of realization, and why Sufi sheikhs always tell you to be in a state of zikr. The practice of dhikr is seen as the most effective way to free spiritual energy and connect with divine light. The fire of dhikr is visualized as a pure and ardent blaze that brings inner lightness and relief. The repetition of the first part of the Shahada, La ilaha illallah, is a key component of the dhikr practice. The dhikr involves techniques such as movements, control of breathing, and postures that help the mystic become absorbed in the object of their attention. The zikr leads to the growth of the subtle body of light and a deepening of spiritual experiences. Corbin discusses the correlation between inner states and visions in mysticism. He explains that these visions serve as a method of verifying the reality of mystical experiences and require a balance in order to avoid illusions. The visions are associated with the four elemental natures of the physical organism. Different colors represent different spiritual states, such as green representing the life of the heart. The book also describes the ascent out of a well and the emergence of a green light, which leads to further mystical experiences. These experiences involve the transmutation of senses into organs of light in the supersensory world. Corbin discusses the transmutation of the senses into supersensory senses. In mystical experiences, so he's basically talking about how these senses will basically transmute into supersensory senses when you go through these mystical experiences. Corbin explains that the feeling of mystical state or mystic state is interconnected with visionary perception or apperception, and that there is a difference in how they are experienced. The book describes the transmutation of the senses and the perception of the sensory in the heavenly earth, and the importance of colors in this process. And this specific part of the book also mentions the growth of orbs of light and their significance in the mystic journey. Going further, in the mystical experience, the alternation between the first and third person represents the paradox of individual spiritual initiation. The relationship between the mystic and the heavenly witness is unique and represents a relationship of love. The figure of the heavenly witness guarantees a theophany perceived by love alone and is manifested through the reunion of like with like in a state of love carried to its climax. The personal guide is designated as the shahid and is seen as the witness of contemplation in Iranian Sufism. The relationship between the earthly loved one and the witness in the heavens is an epiphany, and celestial love is the teacher initiating liberation. The experiences of Najm Cobra illustrate the connection of celestial love and the coming together of like with like, as well as the soror spiritualis. Najm Cobra's doctrine of love connects human and divine love as two forms of the same love. It involves the metamorphosis of the subject or the person of light, rather than transferring love from one object to another. The doctrine aims to resolve the paradoxes of ecstatic love experiences and sees the lover and beloved as one. The scales symbolize the weighing of the soul's purity or disfigurement and indicate the spiritual state. The phases of the soul's transmutations include darkness, two circles of light, and complete visibility of the person of light. The person of light becomes visible when the barrier of dark existence is consumed by the fire of desire. Corbin discusses the concept of the witness in heaven and the relationship between light and darkness. In relation to this concept, Corbin explains that the witness is the divine beauty and theophanic witness, or the witness of theophany, and that one's perception of the witness depends on their own state of being. Corbin also explores the structure of the soul and the importance of personal transcendence, and the book emphasizes the interplay between light and darkness and the role of the witness in one's spiritual journey. The book discusses the need to introduce distinct levels within the unconscious to understand its structure and avoid confusion between complementary and contradictory elements. It argues against the idea of a collective unconscious and emphasizes the importance of individuality in spiritual and mystical experiences. Corbin mentions the idea of vocation as a way to understand the concept of the angel, which represents individuality. Superconsciousness is described as an individual phenomenon that emerges after personal struggle and leads to the birth and expansion of the person of light. The book discusses the concept of the black light in Iranian Sufism and its symbolic significance. It distinguishes between two dimensions of darkness, the darkness of matter and the darkness of the divine self. The black light represents the divine self and is the source of spiritual experiences of colors. These pure lights create their own form in space and are not confined to objects. The book also mentions that the black light is both light and darkness, visible because it brings about vision, but invisible in itself. Najm Razi's treatise explores the doctrine of photoisms, distinguishing between the theophanies of lights of majesty and lights of beauty. The supersensory lights are perceived based on the individual spiritual state and are expressed in different forms, such as flashes, flames, and visualizations. These lights can manifest during liturgical acts, the recitation of the Holy Quran, and various forms of dhikr. Corbin emphasizes that the perception of these lights occurs at the intersection of the inner and outer worlds, and the organ of the heart plays a crucial role in perceiving the sensory and supersensory. Ultimately, the inner and outer worlds become one, and the contemplator becomes the contemplated. The book discusses the concept of light and photoisms in Sufi mysticism. It explains that as the mystic reaches a higher spiritual state, they experience the brightness of the sun or many suns, seeing only their own Lord. The book also describes the different stages of colored lights visualized by the mystic, leading to the black light of passionate love. Corbin mentions the theory of subtle organs and the idea of unveilings in supersensory perception. The Persian poem Gulshan-e-Raz by Mahmoud Shebestari is a highly concise work that has been studied in Iran for its teachings on Sufism. Many commentaries have been written on the poem, with the most comprehensive and widely studied being the Shamsuddin Lahlji. Lahlji's interpretation highlights the concept of the black light, or the concept of this light of the black light, which represents the pure essence and divine presence. The black light is contrasted with the visible light of beings, symbolizing the hidden and apparent aspects of spirituality. Lahlji's commentary explores the idea of the black light and its connection to mystical poverty and a twofold dimension of being. These concepts are reminiscent of Avicenna's ontology and the Zarathustra cosmology of ancient Iran. Corbin discusses the concept of black light in Avicenna's philosophy and its connection to mystical experiences. The book explains how the black light is not the Ahriman darkness or the darkness of Ahriman, but rather the essence of creation and the presence of the divine. The book also explores the metaphysical implications of Avicenna's ontology and its influence on Iranian philosophy. And this specific chapter concludes by discussing visionary experiences and the symbolic meaning of the black light in relation to angelic theophanies. The book discusses the concept of mystical poverty and the mystical station of being absorbed in God. It emphasizes the importance of reaching the seventh valley, which is the valley of mystical poverty and fana. The book also mentions the metaphysical indigence of being and its transformation into mystical poverty. It goes on to describe the mystical state as a luminous night and dark midday, and the secrets of theophanies and divine apparitions. This specific part ends by mentioning the doctrine of Semnal, which connects visionary apperceptions to physiology of the man of light and the structure of mystical anthropology or physiology. Corbin discusses the Mongol ruler of Iran, Arghun, who became a page at the age of 15 and later dedicated himself to Sufism. Corbin explores the spiritual meanings of the Quran and the practice of esoteric hermeneutics in Islam. The author, Semnal, attempted to provide a complete spiritual interpretation of the Quran's esoteric meanings, but only managed to cover Surah 51. Semnal's interpretations involved the application of laws of optics and perspective to spiritual exegesis. The book also introduces the concept of subtle organs in mystical physiology and their corresponding prophets, such as the subtle bodily organ being related to Adam, the heart being related to Abraham, and so on. The seventh and final subtle organ is related to the divine center and associated with Muhammad. Semnal discusses the inward movement of the true self and the transition from horizontal time to the time of the soul in relation to the prophets of Islam. He explores the growth of the subtle organism and the mystic's awareness of this growth through colored lights that symbolize each stage. He emphasizes the importance of avoiding the dangers of mistaking the higher ego for the divine and the need for guidance from his spiritual teachers. Samnani critiques Christianity's understanding of the incarnation and warns against the premature rupture of the growth process. The spiritual seeker faces a perilous stage in the mystical station of the black light, where the lower mode of perception can continue to function, if not eliminated. The Christian's dogma of the incarnation is seen as not perceiving the metaphysical truth of the spiritual birth. Corbin discusses the concept of the mystic's spiritual journey and the relationship between the mystic and their inner guide or teacher. The book explores the connection between Sufism, Manichaeism, and Christianity in terms of their understanding of light and the divine-human relationship. And this specific part of the book emphasizes the importance of inner realization and spiritual practice in becoming truly connected to the divine. Corbin discusses the criticisms of Sufi Semnal and the intentions of Shia imamology. The book emphasizes the importance of understanding the implications of this representation in the science of religions. The concept of spiritualized realism is explained as a way to embody psycho-spiritual and spiritual events. Semnal highlights the danger of losing the divine in human reality, while also discussing the fall of psycho-spiritual time into material history. The contrast between the iconography of the suffering Jesus and the Christus Juvenis is highlighted. Corbin then explores the affinity between Manichaean iconography and Persian miniatures and how it relates to Shia gnosis. Three fundamental themes in Shia gnosis are discussed: the theme of Vilayat, initiation, cycles of revelation, and alchemy and astrology. These themes are compared to those in Manichaean gnosis. This specific chapter concludes by discussing the common theophanic feeling in Shiaism and Sufism, and how it influences the perception of the imam and beauty in iconography. There is a commonality between the chivalric devotion of the Shiite adept and the loving service of the mystic lover. The origins of this mutual inclination are unclear, but it is established in spiritual circles. The testimony of experienced states holds the attention of those that study phenomena. The Manichaean feeling of the universe's drama developed a sense of personal fidelity. The ethic of Shiism and Iranian Sufism culminates in the idea of spiritual chivalry. The testimony of Abu Shakur Salim describes the Manichaeans' passionate adoration of beauty. The Manichaeans represented light in their miniatures with precious metals. Najm Kobra's visions of colored lights correlate with the notion of escape and deliverance. The Zavarna, or light of glory, is represented in Iranian art. The red-gold background colors signify transfiguring light. The contrast and rupture of the shadow banish this light from iconography. The analysis of visionary perceptions and supersensory senses leads to the consideration of goat's physiological colors and its comparisons to the physiology of the man of light. Corbin discusses the idea of a physiology of the man of light and explores Goate's theory of physiological colors. He emphasizes that the perception of color is an active process involving the soul and highlights the spiritual experience of color. Further, he also suggests that color can have a mystical significance and can be used as a language to express archetypal conditions. And he concludes by drawing connections between Goate's doctrine of color and the teachings of Iranian Sufis. The book discusses the aim of experiencing the action of light and the opening of the polar dimension for the super existence of the higher personal individuality. And it also mentions the search for experimental verification of the physiology of the man of light and the revelation of the divine light. Corbin references various sources and discusses the importance of understanding symbols in their spiritual context. Now, as we head into the conclusion, Corbin provides references and notes for further reading on various topics, including Sufism, Avicenna, and Manichaeism. And he also includes information on the celestial pole and the concept of sanctity in Shia and Sufi traditions, which I encourage you to read this book to get a full and better understanding of his references. In 12 Imam Shia Gnosis, the cycle of initiation, dominated by imamology, succeeds the cycles of prophecy. The relationship with Goat's poem and the friend of God of Oberland is explored in Lahiji and En Islam Iranian. There are variations in the enumeration and classification of mystical hierarchies. The worship of an ideal sect of philosophers is described, which includes meditation, cosmic scripture, and philosophical hymnology. Photoism experienced by mystics are described as Hikmat al-Ishraq. The biographical information of Najm ad-Din al-Kubra and his work Fawa'i al-Jamal wa Fawati al-Jalal is discussed. The term heavenly alter ego is used to express the duality of the self. The notion of himma or aspiration is explored. A case of synchronicity between Najm Kobra's dream and his sheikh's dream is mentioned. Corbin discusses a vision where the speaker sees themselves as the sun in the sky and the sky below them. So he's talking about himself here, as well as observing the earth. The book also mentions the triple shahadat in Shia doctrine and the importance of observing spiritual realities. There is reference to the color red and the visualization of light projected by different organs. The book includes, as we head into the conclusion, towards the end of the book, it includes quotes from various sources and mentions the encounter of Moses being rescued from the waters. Corbin discusses various themes, including esoteric names, heavenly names, and the concepts of love and light in mysticism, and he references different works and authors providing insights into mystical and theological ideas. Corbin discusses various figures from Iranian history, including Sheikh Lahjil, Qazi Nurullah Shastari, and Shah Esma, and he touches on the symbolism of colors and mysticism and references other works related to the topic. Corbin, in the conclusion of this book, discusses various topics, such as the origin of Persian iconography, the connection between Islamic and Byzantine iconography, the role of Kufa in the origin of painting in Islam, the symbolism of colors, and the mystical experiences associated with colors. He also mentions various scholars and works related to these topics. Corbin discusses various concepts, figures, and themes related to mysticism, spirituality, and metaphysics. And he mentions some of these, including Sabians, Sufism, the senses, the colors, the unconscious, the throne, visions, symbols, and Zoroastrianism. So to conclude, I hope you were able to benefit from this teaching summary of Henry Corbin's The Man of Light in Iranian Sufism, and I hope you were able to benefit from this summary teaching from this great teacher and the message he always gives to humanity. Thank you all, and much love to you all for the month of April 2024. Assalamu alaikum.